Chapter 1. As I sit here with one foot on either side of the ledge looking down from 12 stories above the street of Boston, I cannot help but think about suicide. Not my own. I like my life enough to want to see it through. I am more confused on other people and how they ultimately come to the decision to just end their own life. To do they ever regret it? In the moment after letting go, the second before they make impact, there has to be a little bit of remorse in that bright free all. Do they look at the ground as it rushes toward them and think, well, crap, this was a bad idea? Somehow I think not. I think about that a lot, particularly today, considering I just 12 hours earlier gave one of the most epic eulogies the people of Plethora, Maine have ever witnessed. Okay, maybe it wasn't the most epic, it very well could be considered the most disastrous. I guess that will depend on whether you were asking my mother or me. My mother, who probably would not speak to me for a solid year after today. Do not get me wrong, the eulogy I delivered was not profound enough to make history. Like the one Brooke Shield delivery at Michael Jackson's funeral, or the one delivery by Steve Jobs' sister, or the Pat Tillman's brother, but it was epic in its own way. I was nervous at first. It was a funeral of the prodigious Andrew Bloom, after all, adored mayor of the hometown to Plethora, Maine, owner of the most successful real estate agency within the city limits, husband of the high aboard Jenny Bloom, the most revered teaching assistant in all Plethora, and father of Lily Bloom, the strange girl with the erratic red hair who once fell in love with a homeless guy and brought great shame upon her entire family. That would be I am Lily Bloom and Andrew was my father. As soon as I finished delivering his eulogy today, I caught a flight straight back to Boston and hijacked the first roof I could find. Again, not because I am suicidal. I have no plan to scale off this room. I just really need fresh air and silence and dramatic. If I cannot get that from my third floor apartment with absolutely no rooftop access and a roommate who likes to hear herself sing, I didn't account for how cold it would be up here. Thought it it's not unbearable, but it's not comfortable either. At least I can see the star, dead father, and exasperating roommates and questionable eulogies. I don't feel so full when the night sky is clear enough to literally feel a grandeur on universe. I love it when the sky make me feel insignificant, insignificant, insignificant. Like tonight. Well, let me rephrase this so that is more appropriately reflects my feeling in past tense. I like tonight, but unfortunately for me, the door was just shoved open so hard. I expect the stairwell to split a human out onto the rooftop. The door slams shut again and footsteps move swiftly across the deck. I do not even bother looking up. However, it is more than likely will not even notice me back here trading the latch of the left on the door. They came out here in the hurry. It isn't my fault. They assume they are alone. I sit quietly, close my eyes, and lean my head against the stucco wall behind me, cursing the universe of reaping the peaceful, introspective movement out from under me. The least of the universe could do for me today is ensure that is a woman and not a man. If I am going to have company ID, rather it be a female. I am taught for my size and can probably hold my oven in most cases, but I am too comfortable right now to be on on a rooftop alone with a strange man in the middle of night. I might fear for my safety and feel need to leave, and I really want to be leave. As I said before, I am comfortable. I finally allow my eyes to make the journey to all see how living over the ledge. As luck would have it, he is definitely male, even leaning over the rail. I cannot tell, he told, broad shoulder, created a strong contrast to have a fragile way. He is holding his head in his hand. I can barely make out the heavy rise and fall of the back as he drags in a deep breath and force them back out. Then he is done with them. He appeared to be on the verge of a breakdown. I contemplate speaking up to let him know he has a company to or clear in my throat, but between thinking it and actually does it, he spin around and kick one of the patio chair behind him. I flinch as it screeches across the deck, but being as thought, he isn't even aware he has an audience. The guys doesn't stop with just one kick. He kicked the chair repeatedly, over and over, rather than give way beneath the blunt force of his foot. All the chair does is scoot farther and farther away from him. That chair must be made from marine grade polymer. I once watched my father back over the outdoor patio table made of marine grade polymer, and it practically looked at him. Then he dented his bumper but didn't even put a scratch on a table. His guy must realize he is no match for the such a high quality material because he finally stopped kicking the chair. He is now standing over it, his hands clenched in fist at his sides. To be honest, I am little envious here. This guy is talking his aggression out on patio furniture like a champ. He's obviously had a shitty day, as have I. But whereas I keep my aggression pent up until a manifest, and from the passive aggressive, this guy actually had an outlet. My outlet used to gardening. Anytime I was stressed, I just go out the backyard and pull every single weed I could find. But since the day I moved to Boston 2 years ago, I haven't had a backyard or a patio. I do not even have a weeds. Maybe I need to invest in a marine grade polymer patio chair. I stare at the guy a moment longer, wondering if he is ever going to move. He is just standing there, starting down at the chair. His hand aren't in fist anymore. They are rest, resting on his hips, and I notice for the first time how his shirt doesn't fit him very well around his biceps. It fit him everywhere else, but his arms are huge, being fishing around in the pocket until he finds what he is looking for, and in what I am sure is probably an effort to release every even move or the aggression. He light up a joint and 23 have been through college and have done this very same recreational drug at time or two. I am not going to judge this guy for feeling the need to talk up in private, but that's the thing. He is not in private. He just doesn't know that yet. He takes in a long drag of his joint and starts to turn back toward the ledge. He noticed me on the exhale. He stopped walking the second our eyes meet. The expression hold no shock, nor does it hold amusement when he sees me. He's about 10 feet away, but there's enough light from the star that I can see his eyes as they slowly drag over my body without revealing a single thought. This guy holds his card well, his gaze in a narrow and his mold drawn tight like a male version of a Mona Lisa. What's your name? He asked. I feel his voice in my stomach. That's no good voice. Should stop at the ear, but sometimes not every often all at all. Actually, a voice will penetrate past my ear and reverberate straight down through my body. He was one of those voices, deep, confident, and a little bit like butter. When I do not answer him, he brings the joint back on to his mouth and takes another hit. Lily, I finally say I hate my voice. I found it sound too weak to even reach his ear from here, much less reverberate inside his body. He lifts his chin a little and nudges his head toward me. Will you please get down from there, Lily? It isn't until he says this that I notice his posture. He is standing straight up now, rigid, even almost as if he is nervous. I am going to fall. I am not. His ledge is at least foot wide, and I am mostly on the roof side. I could easily catch myself before I fell. Not to mention, I got the wind in my favor. I glanced down at my legs and then back up at him. No thanks. I am quite comfortable where I am. He turns a little. I cannot look straight at me. Please get down. It's more of a demand now, despite his use of a word please. There are 7 empty chairs up here. Almost 6, I correct, reminding him that he just tried to murder one of them. He doesn't find the humor of my response when I fail to follow him his order. He takes a couple of steps closer. You are a mere 3 inches from falling to your death. I have found I have been around enough of that for one day. He motioned for me to get down again. You are making me nervous, not to mention running my high. I roll my eye and swing my leg over. Heaven forbid a joint go to waste. I hop down and wipe my hand across my jeans. Better, I say as I walk toward him. He lets out a rush of air as if seeing me on the ledge actually had him holding his breath. I pass him to head for the side of the roof with the better view, and as I do, I cannot help but notice how unfortunately cute he is. Now, cute is an insult. This guy is a beautiful, well manicured, smell like money. Look to be a several years older than me. His eyes crinkle in the corner as they follow me, and his lip seems to frown even when they aren't. When I reach the side of the building, that overlook the street. I lean forward and stare down at the car below, trying not to appear impressed by him. I can tell by haircut alone that he is a kind of man people are easily impressed by, and I refuse to feed into his ego. Not that he has done everything to make me think he even has no, but he is wearing a casual Burberry shirt, and I am not sure I will ever been on a radar of someone who could actually afford one. I can hear footsteps approaching from behind, and then he leans against the railing next to me. Out of corner of my eye, I watch as he take another hit of his joint. When he is finished, he offers his to me, but I wave it off. The last thing I need to be under the influence around this guy. His voice is a drug in itself. I kind of want to hear it again, so I throw a question in his direction. So, what did that chair do to make you so angry? He looks at me like really look at me. His eyes meet mine, and he just stares hard like all my secrets are right there on my face. I will never see eyes as dark as I have, but they seem darker when they are attacked. So to such an intimidating presence, he doesn't answer my question, but my curiosity isn't easily put to rest. If he is going to force me down from a very peaceful, comfortable ledge, then I expect him to entertain me with answer to my nosy question. Was it a woman? I inquire. Did the break you hurt? He log a title with that question. If only my issues were as trivial as matter of the heart, he leans into the wall so that he can face me. What floor do you live on? He licks his finger and pinches the end of his joint, then put it back in his pocket. I'll never notice you before. That's because I wanted like live here. I point in my direction of my apartment. See that insurance building? He squints as he look in the direction I'm pointing. Yeah, I live in a building next to it. It's too short to see from here. It's only 3 stories tall. He is facing me again, resting his elbow on a ledge. If you live over there, why are you here? Your boyfriend live here or something. His comment some show makes me feel cheap. It was too easy, an amateurish pickup line. From the look of his guy, I know he has a better skill than that. I make me think he saves the more difficult pickup lines for the woman he deems worthy. You have a nice roof, I tell him. He lifts an embryo, waiting for more of an explanation. I want fresh air somewhere to think. I pulled up Google Earth and found the closet apartment complex with a decent rooftop patio. He regarded me with a smile. At least you are economical. He said that's good quality to have. At least I ignored because I am economical and it is not good quality to have. Why did you need fresh air? He asked. But I buried my father today and I gave an epically disastrous eulogy, and now I feel like I cannot breathe. I faced word again and slowly exhale. We cannot just not talk for the title while. He seemed a bit relieved that I asked for silence. He leans over the ledge, and lets an arm dangle as he stares down at the street. He stays like this for a while, and I stare at him the entire time. He probably know I am starting, but he doesn't seem to care. A guy fell off his roof last month, he said. I would be annoyed at his lack of respect for my request for silence. But I am kind of intrigued. Was it an accident? He shrugs. No one knows. It happened late in the evening. His wife said she was cooking dinner and he told her he was coming. Photographer. They think he was learning over the ledge of get shot of the skyline and he slipped. I look over the ledge wondering how someone could possibly hurt themselves in a situation where they could fall by accident, but then I remember I was just straddling the ledge on the other side of the roof a few minutes ago. When my sister told me what happened, the only thing I could think about was whether or not he got the shot. I was hoping his camera didn't fall and with him because that would have been a real waste. Uh, Real waste, to die because of your love photography, but you didn't even get a final shot that cost your your life. His thought make me laugh. I thought I am not sure I should have looked at that. Do you always extract what's on your mind? He shrugs not to people. This makes me smile. I like that he doesn't even know me, but for whatever reason, I am not consider most people to him. The rest is back against the ledge and fold his arm over the chest where you born here. I shake my head. No move here from when after I graduate college. He scrunches up his nose and it's kind of hot watching guy dressed in a Burberry shirt with his $200 haircut making silly faces. So you are Boston purgatory who what's got a suck? What do you mean? I ask him. The corner of his mouth curls. The tourist treat you like a local. The local treat you like a tourist. I log who. Wow, that's a very accurate description. I've been here 2 months. I'm not even in purgatory yet. You are doing better than I am. What brought you to Boston? My residency and my sister lies here. He taps his foot and says, right beneath, you's actually married a tech savvy Bostonian and they bought the entire top floor. I look down, the entire top floor. He nods. Look, lucky bastard, work from home, doesn't even have to chance out of pajamas and makes you 7 figures a year. Lucky bastard indeed. What kind of residency are you, a doctor? He notes neurosurgeon. Less than a year left a residency, and then it's official, stylish, well spoken, and smart, and smokes sport. If his were a set question, I would ask which one didn't belong. Should doctor be smoking weed? He smokes, probably not, but if we didn't indulge on occasion, there would be a lot more of us talking the leap over these ledges. I can promise you that he is facing forward again with his chin resting on his arm. His eyes are closed now, like he is enjoying the wine against his hand. He doesn't look as intimidating like this. You want to know something that only the local know? Of course, he said, bringing his attention back to me. I point to east. See that building? That one is the green roof. the notes. There is a building behind in a Melcher. There is a house on a top of a building like a legit house built right on the rooftop. You cannot see from the street, and building is tall that not many people even know about it. He looks impressed really. I know I saw it when I was searching Google Earth, so I look it up. Apparently, a permit was granted for core construction in 1982. How cool would that be to live in a house on top of a building? You didn't you did get the whole roof of yourself, he say. I didn't hadn't thought of that. If I opened it could plant garden up there I'd have I didn't have an outlet. Who lives there? He asked. No one really knows. It's one of the greatest mysteries of Boston. He looks and then look at the inquisitively. Was it what's another another great mystery of Boston? You name your name as soon as I say it. I slap my hand against my forehead. It sounded so much like cheesy pickup line, and the more only thing I can do is laugh at myself. He smiled. It's Ryle. He says Ryle Kincaid. Kincaid. I sigh, sinking into myself. That's a really great name. Why do you sound sad about it? Because I didn't give anything for a great name. You do not like the name Lily. I tilt my head and cook, cook, and eyebrow. My last name is Bloom. He is quiet. I can feel him trying to hold back his pity. I know it's awful. It's name of a 2-year-old little girl, not a 23-year-old woman. A 2-year-old girl will have the same name to matter how old she get. Name aren't something we eventually grow out. The lily bloom. Unfortunately for me, I say, but that make it even worse. It that I absolutely love gardening. I love flower plants, growing things. It's my passion. It's always been my dream to open a florist shop, but I am afraid if I did, people would not think my desire was authentic. They would think I was trying to capitalize of my name, and that being a florist isn't really my dream job. Maybe so, he say, but that's what's the matter. It doesn't. I suppose I catch myself whispering, Lily blooms quiet. I can see him smiling a little bit. It really is a great name for a florist, but I have master degree in business. I did downgrading down. Don't you think I'm working for the biggest marketing firm in Boston? Owning your own business isn't a downgrading. He says, raise an eyebrow unless it flops. He nods in agreement unless it flops. He says, so what's your middle name? Lily Bloom. I groan, which makes him perk up. You mean it's get worse? I drop my head in my hand and nod rose. I shake my head worse violet. I wish I cringe and then mutter blossom. There is a moment of silence. God damn. He says softly, yeah, Blossom is my mother maiden name, and my parents thought it was fate that their last name was synonymous. So on course when they had me, a flower was their first choice. Your parents must be real asshole. One of them was my father died. His week. He glanced at me. Nice try. I am not falling for that. I am serious. That's why I came up here tonight. I think I just need a good cry. He stares at me suspiciously for a moment to make sure I am not pulling his leg. He doesn't apologize for the blunder. Instead, his eye grow little more curious, like he's intrigued and actually wanting where you close. That's a hard question. I rest my chin on my arm and look down at the street again. I don't know. I say with a shrug, as his daughter, I love him, but as a human, I hated him. I cannot feel him watching me for a moment, and then he say, "I like that your honesty." He likes my honesty. I think I might be blushing. Well, both quiet again for a while, and then he say, "Do you ever wish people were more transparent?" How so? He pick at a piece of chipped stucco with his thumb until it breaks loose. He flicks it over the ledge. I can feel everyone fakes who they really are, when deep down we are all of equal amount of screwed up. Some of us are just better at hiding it than other. Either his high is setting in, or he just very introspective. Either way, I'm okay with it. Favorite conversation are that one, no real answer. I do not think being little guarded is a negative thing. I say naked truth aren't always pretty. He stares at me for a moment. Naked truth, he repeats, I like that. He turns around and walks to the middle of the rooftop. He adjusts the back on one of the patio lungers. He hide behind me, lower himself onto it. It isn't the kind you lie on. So he pulls his hand behind his head and look up at the sky. I the claim one text of him and adjust his until I am in the same position as him. Tell me a naked truth, Lily, pertaining to what? He shrugs. I do not know. Something you are not proud of, something that will make me feel little less screwed up on the inside. He is starting at the sky, waiting on me on to answer. My eyes follow the line of his jaw, the curve of his cheek, the outline of his lip. His eyebrow are drawn together in contemplation. I do not understand why, but he seems need his conversation right now. I think about his question and try to find an honest answer. When I come up with one, I look away from him and back up to the sky. My father was abusive, not to give, not to me, to my mother. He would get so angry when they thought that something he would hit her happen that her happen what that happened. It would spend the next week or making up for it. He would do it like buy her flower or take us out of a nice dinner. Sometimes he would buy me stuff because he knew I hated when they fought. When I was a kid, I found myself looking forward to the night they would fight because I knew if he hit her, the 2 weeks that followed, would be great. I pause and I am not sure I will ever admitted that to myself. Of course, could. I would have made it to where he never touch her, but the abuse was inevitable with their marriage and it became our norm. When I got older, I realized that then not doing something about it made me just as guilty. I spent most of the my hating him being such as a bad person, but I am not sure I am much better. Maybe we both had people really look over at me with a thoughtful expression. Lily, he say pointedly, there is so no much such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do better things. I open my mouth to respond, but his word strike me silent. We were, we are all just people who sometimes do bad things. I guess that's true in the way. No one is exclusively bad, nor in any one exclusively good. Some are just forced to work harder at suppressing the bad. Your turn, I tell him based on his reaction. I think he might not want to play his own game. He sighed heavily and ran a hand through his hair. He opened his mouth to speak but then clamps it shut again. He thinks for a bit and then finally speaks. I watch a little boy die tonight. His voice is despondent. He was only 5 years old. He and his little brother found a guns in a parent's bedroom. Their younger brother was holding in and it went off by accident. My stomach flips. I want this may be a little too much truth for me. There was nothing that could be done. By the time they made it to the operating table, everyone around, nurses, other doctor, they all felt so sorry for the family, those poor parents, they said. But when I had to walk into the waiting room and tell those parents that their child I do not didn't make it, I didn't feel ounce of sorrow for them. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to feel the weight of their ignorance for keeping a loaded gun within asses of two innocent children. I wanted them to know that not only did they just lose a child, they just ruined the entire life on the one who accidentally pulled the trigger. Jesus Christ, I wasn't prepared for something so heavy. I cannot even conceive how a family moves past that. The poor boy brother I saw, I cannot imagine what that's going to do to him. Seeing something like Chad that Riley flicks something off the kidney of his genes isn't destroy him for life. That's what they do. I turn on my side to face him, lifting my head up and onto my hands. Is, is, is it hard seeing things like that every day? He gives his head a slight shake. It should be a lot harder, but the more I am around that, the more it just becomes a part of life. I'm sure how I feel about that. He makes eye contact with me again. Give me another one, he say. I feel like mine was little more twisted than you. I disagree, but I tell him about the twisted thing I did a mere 12 hours ago. My mother asked me 2 days ago if I would deliver the eulogy at my father's funeral today. I told her I didn't feel comfortable, that I might trying too hard to speak in front of crowd, but that was a lie. I just didn't want to do it because I feel like eulogies should be delivered by those who respected the deceased, and I didn't much respect my father. Did you do it? I nodded, yeah. This morning I sit up and pull my legs beneath me. I face him. You want to hear it? He smiles absolutely. I fold my hands in my lap and inhale a breath. I had no idea what to say about an hour because the funeral. I told my mother I didn't want to do it. She said it was a simple that was and that my father would have wanted me to do it. She said all I had to do was walk up to the podium and so him give five great thing about my father. So that is exactly what I did. Riley lifts up onto his elbow, appearing even more interested. He can tell by look on my face that it gets worse. Oh no, Lily, what did you do? Here, let me just reenact if for you. I stand up and walk around to the other side of my chair. I stand tall and act like I am looking out over a same crowded room I was meet with the morning. I clear my throat. Hello, my name is Lily Bloom, daughter of my late Andrew Bloom. Thank you all for joining us today as we mourn his loss. I wanted to take a moment to honor his life by sharing with your five regret thing about my father. The first thing, I looked down Riley and shrugged. That's it. He sat up. What do you mean? I take seat on my lounge chair and lie back down. Stood up there for 2 solid minutes without saying another word. There wasn't one great thing I could say about her that man, so I just stared silently at the crowd until my mother realized that I was doing and had my uncle remove me from the podium. Riley tilts his head. Are you kidding me? You gave the anti-eulogy at your own father's funeral. I know I am not proud of it. I do not think if I had my way, he would have been a much better person and I would have stood up. There was talk for an hour. Riley lies back down. Wow, he says, shaking his head. You are kind of my hero. You just roasted a dead guy. That's tacky. Yeah, well, Nick, fruit hurts. Hello, your turn. I cannot stop that. He say, I'm sure you can come close. I'm not sure I can. I roll my eyes. Yes, you can. Do not make me feel like that worst person out of the two of us. Tell me the more recent thought you have had that most people wouldn't say out loud. He pulls his hand up behind his head and looks me straight in eye. I want to fuck you. My mouth fall up open. Then I clamp it shut again. It think I might be speechless. He shoots me a look innocence. You asked for the most recent thought, so I gave it you too. You are a beautiful. I am a guy. If you are were into a one night stand, if you take you downstairs to my bedroom and I will fuck you. I cannot even look at him. His statements make a feel a multitude of things all at once. Well, I'm not into one night stand. I figured as much. He say your turn. He is not slant. He acts like I didn't just turn me into silence. I need a minute to regroup. After that one I say is a log. I try thinking something with a little shock value, but I cannot get over the fact he just said that the outland maybe because the neurosurgeon and get never pictured someone educated throwing around the word fuck so casually. I gathered myself somewhat. and then say okay since we're on the object. The first guy I have ever had to sex with was homeless. He perks up the face of me. Oh, I'm gonna need more of his story. I stretched my arms out the rest. I had my head on it. I grew up a man. We lived in a fairly decent neighborhood, but the street behind our house wasn't in the best condition. Our backyard booted up in a condemned house adjacent to abandoned lots. I became a friend with a guy named Atlas who stayed in a condemned house. No one knew he was living there other than me. I used to take him food and clothes and stuff until my father found out. What he do? I don't think the Titans. I do not. I didn't know what why I brought this up, and I still force myself not to think about it only a daily basis. We beat him up. That's as naked as I want to get about that subject. Your turn. He regarded me silently for a moment as if he know there is a more to that story. But then he break eye contact. The thought of marriage repulses me. He say I am not 30-year-old and I am to desire for a wife. Especially I do not want children. That only thing I want of life is success. Lot is, but I admit that out loud to anyone. It make me sound arrogant. Professional success or social status, he say both anyone can have children anymore can get married, but not everyone can neurosurgeon. I get a lot pride out of that. I don't just want to be a great neurosurgeon. I want to be the best in my field. You are right. It too does make you sound arrogant. He smiles. My mother fear I am wasting my life away because all I do is work. You are a neurosurgeon and your mother is a disappointed in you. I love, good Lord, that's insane. Are parents ever really happy with their children? Will they ever be good enough? He shakes his head. My children wouldn't be. Not many people have the drive I do, so I do not be setting them up for failure. That's why we have never have been. I actually think that's respectable. Riley, a lot of people refuse to admit they might be too selfish to have children. He shakes his head. Oh, I am way too selfish to have children. I am definitely way too selfish to be in a relationship. So how do avoid to just do not date? He cuts his eye to me and there a slight grin affixed to his face. When I time there are girls who satisfy those needed. I do not lack for anything in that department. If that what you are asking, but love has never appealed to me. It's always been more of the burden than anything. I wish I looked at love like that. I would make my life a hell of lot easier. I envy you. I have this idea that there is a perfect man out there for me. I tend to become jaded easily because no one ever meet me standard. I feel like I'm on infinite search for the holy grail. You should try to method, he said, which is one night stand. He raised a eyebrow like is an invitation. I'm glad it's dark because my face is on a fire. I could never sleep with someone I didn't see going anywhere. I so say this out loud, but my word lack conviction. Then I say to him. He drank in a long, slow breath and then told his back, not that kind of girl. He said this with a trace of disappointment in his face, in his voice. I match his disappointment. I'm not sure I didn't ever even want to turn him down if he made a move, but I might have just thwarted if that possibility. If you would sleep with someone you just meet, his eyes meet mine again, exactly how far would you go? I would not have an answer for that. I roll onto my back because the way he's looking at the makes me want to rethink one night stand. I'm not necessarily against them. I suppose I will just never disagree proposed for one by someone I would consider it with. Until now, I think this is even propositioning me. I will always be terrible at filtering. He reached out the grab the edge of my long hair in a one shift moment, and with a very minimal effort, he dragged my chair closer to him until it was his whole body stiffened. He is close now. I can feel the warmth of his breath cutting through the cold air. If I were to look at him, his face would be mere inches for mine. I refuse to look him because I probably kiss me, and I know absolutely nothing about this guy other than a couple of naked truth. But that doesn't wait on the conscience at all when the rest heavy hand on my stomach. How far would you go, Lily? His voice is decadent, smooth. It travels straight to my toes. I do not know. I whisper, his finger being to crawl toward the hem of the shirt of my shirt. He beginning to slowly inch it upward until a slither of my stomach is showing. Oh Jesus, I whisper, feeling the warmth from his hand. He slides it up my stomach against my better judgment. I face him again. The look in his eyes completely captivates me. He looks hopeful and hungry and completely confident. He sinks his teeth into his bottom lip as his head hand being to be teased midway up my shirt. I know he can feel my heart thrashing around in my chest. Help. He can probably hear it. It is too far. He asks, I don't know where this side time of me is coming from, but I shake my head and say, not even close. With a grin, his finger brush the underneath in on my bra, lightly pricking over my skin that is now covered in chills. As soon as my eyelids fall shut, the piercing of the ring rips through the air. His hand stiffens then he both realize it's a phone. His phone. phone. He dropped his forehead to my shoulder. Damn it! I from when his hand slip out from beneath my shirt. He bumps his in his pocket for his phone, standing up and walking several feet away from me to take up the call. King said, "Kid," he says, listens intensely, his hand gripping the back of his neck. What's about Robert? I am not even supposed to be one call right now. More silences follow with the yeah, give me 10 minutes on my way. He ends the call, slides his phone back in his pocket and turns face and he looked a little disappointed. He pointed in the door. He lets stare well. I have to nod. I am fine. He considered me for a moment and then he hold up a finger. Do not move, he said, reaching for his phone again. He walked close and hold it up as if here is about to snap a picture of me. I am almost object, but I do not even know I am fully clothed in just do not feel that way for some reason. He snapped a picture of me lying in a lounge chair, my arm relaxed above my head. I have no idea what he planned to do with that picture, but I have like that he took it. I like that he had to ergo to remember that I look like, even thought he is never see me again. He stares at a photo on a screen for a second, smiles. I'm half tempted to talk a picture him return, but I'm not sure I want to remind of someone I'll never see again. The thought of that a little depressing. It was nice meeting to you, Lily Bloom. I hope you Daffy the Woods almost dream and actually accomplish your smile equally saddened and confused by this guy. I am sure I have I have spent his someone like him before, someone of a completely different lifestyle and tax bracket. I probably never will again, but I pleasantly surprised to see that weren't all that different. Microconception confirmed. He looked down at the feet moment he stand in a somewhat of a unsure was it is a suspend between the desire to say something else to me and the need to leave the glance at me one last time, this time without so much of a poker face. I can see the disappointment in the set of his mouth before he turned and walked his other direction. He opened another door. I can hear his footsteps fade in a rushes down and share and I am alone on the rooftop once again, but to my surprise I am little saddened by the by that now.